Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. So today we are continuing a coverage along multiple fronts. We're going to look at the recent Iranian proxy strike against a U.S. base in northeastern Jordan near Rukban. We'll have a look at the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. But within the last 24 hours, there was an Iranian proxy strike at this locale here. You can see on our map. This base is also called Tower 22, and a Iranian drone carrying explosives was able to penetrate the U.S. defensive barrier and strike a tent and or accommodation that was housing U.S. troops, killing 3 U.S. forces and wounding up to 30. Now, immediately, we have seen the likes of Ladybug Graham. You can see Ladybug, Lindsey Graham, right here to the left, calling for the U.S. to strike back now. And I'm just looking at this picture. Who is this? This is Rocket Man. So Lindsey and the Rocket Man. I wonder if Lindsey's catching rockets or throwing rockets. What do you think? Hey, I'm not going to go there. Come on. All right, let's go back to the map. So the options for the U.S. So the rhetoric that is coming out of the White House is one that does not project strength. It is insinuating there will be a retaliatory strike against Iran, but it is going to be measured. Now, when you're dealing with the Iranians, you have to strike back hard. You cannot play this game of tit for tat. You cannot appear weak. And unfortunately, the United States is starting to appear weak against Iran. So if the United States has to strike Iran, you have to strike incredibly hard. Like Reagan did during Operation Praying Mantis in the 80s, where we destroyed most of the Iranian Navy in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz. So a small strike is unfortunately not going to cut it. It's going to bring more strikes. Now here's the real tricky situation for the United States. It's not the fact that the United States can knock the snot out of Iran, because the United States can. And it can strike incredibly hard and compel Iran not to use its proxies against U.S. forces. But if the United States does that, if the United States goes after targets in Iran that is going to impact the Iranian economy, it also is going to help Russia. And the United States doesn't want to do that. So how does striking at Iran in a ferocious manner help the Russians? Oil. The Russians make a lot of money and fund a lot of its defense sector off the production of crude oil. If the U.S. strikes against the Iranians ferociously, like it needs to, it is going to increase the costs of oil, thus helping the Russians. So this is really a catch-22 for the United States. It really is. It is a difficult situation. Furthermore, unlike in the 1980s, the Iranians have the capability of striking back. The Iranians have the capability to go after U.S. bases with these very precise ballistic missiles. And I don't think the U.S. is quite in a position, especially in terms of targets in Iraq, Syria, Eastern Jordan, possibly Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. If we strike the Iranians in a ferocious manner, obviously the Iranians are going to counterstrike with these ballistic missiles, drones, and cruise missiles. And that undoubtedly will cause casualties, with additional casualties with U.S. forces, thus escalating the conflict, thus increasing the price of crude oil, thereby enriching the Russians. Now look, I'm not taking a stance one way or another. I really despise this character. I really do. I don't understand how the Carolinas votes this individual into office. Doesn't have children. Does not emulate what America is. Most Americans have families. Most Americans have children. And this guy does not have that. And that's what concerns me. Any individual that does not have children who did very rudimentary military service in the rear with the gear, I really hesitate in terms of these individuals sending the U.S. Armed Forces to battle. But at the same time, I also understand that to compel Iran, you have to hurt Iran. The Iranian proxies are expendable. The Iranians, the leadership in Tehran, does not care if the United States strikes those targets. It is not going to change the dynamics of how the Iranians operate against the United States. The only thing that will change the MO of the Iranians is a vigorous and ferocious strike against targets in Iran. Then again, it's back to what I had talked about before. Escalation, the price of oil goes up, and we gravitate towards world conflict, which we are already doing. So not a lot of good situations any way we try to spin it at all in regards to this. Both from a military aspect, we can expect a robust counterstrike by the Iranians with its ballistic missiles. We can anticipate the price of crude oil will skyrocket, especially if the Iranians start to target shipping in the Persian Gulf. And undoubtedly they would if the United States attacks Iran in a ferocious manner, which it has to in order to prevent future strikes. So there is no good out in the conflict to come. And again, this goes back to my discussion about humanity. This is what we do. We have done this for thousands of years, and we will do this for possibly thousands more, maybe less, who knows. But this is what we do. We go to war against each other. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And it will continue. Now, the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. There has been rumors coming out of Ukraine that Volodymyr Zelensky is on the cusp of sacking the commander of the Ukrainian military, Zaluzhny. What is going to happen? Could we see loyalist forces in the Ukrainian military come to Zaluzhny's defense? Could we be on the verge of a collapse of the Zelensky government? We have also heard that Zelensky has ordered the dismissal of Zaluzhny. And Zaluzhny and his allies within the Ukrainian military have said, nope, we're not leaving. Make me leave. You are powerless. So do we know that occurred? We don't. Do we suspect that occurred? Yes, we do. We think there is a discourse, a very heated discourse, between Zaluzhny and Zelensky. We're also hearing reports that the Russians could be preparing for renewed offensive operations late this summer in Belarus. A new offensive directed towards Kiev, depending on how the Russian offensive goes in this winter offensive and then the spring-summer offensive later this year. But again, the Russian buildup continues. The Russian force construct along the Ukrainian border is continuing to build up. We're seeing more and more Russian units being formed. We're seeing Russian units being further filled out. The continued increase in Russian production capacity in terms of tanks, armored vehicles, drones, aircraft, it runs the gamut. The Russians have, as I've talked about before, essentially tripled production, quadrupled production prior to the start of the conflict. Now, what's going to happen? Difficult to say. Again, in the southeast near Avdiivka, the line continues to collapse. The Russians continue to erode Ukrainian defenses, continue to attack the Ukrainian military in and around Avdiivka. And we expect that will continue until the final fall of Avdiivka. And again, we are probably going to see larger scaled Russian offensive operations against the Ukrainians as we get deeper into winter, and then we start summer, late summer. So quick shout out to Jay Savage. Yep, there it is, Jay. All right, that's what we had for today. Have a good day, everybody.